The jury didn't take long. 47 minutes. Not enough time to second guess. Just enough to see what was always there. When they filed back in, the air shifted again. Not tense, just full. Like the moment had been holding its breath since Alana stepped to the podium. The four-person stood, middle-aged, calm, paper in hand. In the matter of State versus Jamal Trevors, he read, voice even, we find the defendant not guilty on all charges. No outburst. No cheers. Just a quiet ripple through the courtroom, like gravity had changed direction. Alana didn't react. No smile. No exhale. She simply placed her pen inside her binder, closed it gently, and looked straight ahead. Judge Emerson nodded, slowly. This court thanks the jury for its service. You are dismissed. His voice never wavered, but something behind it had softened, just barely. At the witness stand, Officer Harlan didn't move. He sat with both hands on his knees, eyes locked on a point in the wood grain ahead of him, not looking at Alana, not at the jury, not at his own attorney. Frozen, exposed, alone. Whatever shield he thought his years gave him, authority, instinct, confidence, none of it held now, because the verdict hadn't just cleared a name, it had drawn a line, one he'd crossed without ever thinking someone would call it out. And now someone had. A 17-year-old girl in sneakers. Alana stood, adjusted her blazer, and extended a hand to her client. Jamal's fingers trembled as he shook it, then pressed his free hand to his chest, like he still couldn't believe the weight was gone. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The judge gave one final glance toward the gallery. Court is adjourned. The gavel didn't slam. It landed. Quiet. Sure. People began to stand. The spell slowly broke. But no one looked at Harlan as they passed. Not out of respect, out of clarity. He was no longer the man in the uniform. He was the man who got caught, believing no one would ever question him. And the courtroom, the one he thought he could smirk his way through, belonged to someone else now. The hallway outside the courtroom was quiet. No flashing cameras, no reporters, just the low hum of vending machines, and the echo of distant footsteps bouncing off marble. Alana pushed through the heavy door without ceremony. Her binder was tucked under one arm, blazer sleeves slightly wrinkled from the hours she'd spent not moving. Her sneakers squeaked once against the tile, then fell silent. Her father stood near the window. Judge Emerson now just Dad again. Hands in his pockets. Face unreadable. She walked up beside him but didn't say anything. Neither did he. They stood there for a moment, looking out at the parking lot. Wind tugged at the flag near the edge of the courthouse steps. A few leaves danced across the sidewalk. Finally he spoke. I knew you'd hold your own, he said softly. She glanced at him. But I didn't expect to feel this proud. That was the part that made her pause. Not the courtroom, not the verdict, not even the moment he'd stood up and reminded the world exactly who she was. This, right here. She let herself smile, just a little, not wide, not loud. Just enough to say thank you, without saying it. He turned to her, eyes full of something quieter than pride, something steadier. You okay? He asked. Yes, she said.
Just tired.
He nodded. Good tired, or the kind that sits with you. Alana thought for a moment. Both. They didn't hug.
Didn't need to.
He reached out, gently adjusted the strap on her binder, where it had started to slip, then stepped back.
Show.
I've got chambers, he said. I've got class, she replied. They both smiled. This time, he took a few steps away, then stopped and looked over his shoulder. You changed something in there, he said.
Show.
Even if no one says it out loud. Alana didn't answer, just nodded once. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. No applause followed. No headlines waited. Just the click of a door behind her, and the soft scrape of her steps against stone. And somewhere between the courtroom and the curb, Alana Reeves exhaled, not in relief, not in triumph, but in something quieter, resolve. If this story moved you, share it, because somewhere out there is another Alana Reeves, waiting to be seen, heard, and believed. Let's amplify voices that challenge power, demand truth, and redefine what justice looks like. He laughed when she dropped her notes, called her sweetheart, and asked if she was there to observe. But when the judge stood up, face unreadable, eyes locked on the officer, he said just 7 words that froze the room. You just mocked my daughter. Proceed. And everything changed. The room smelled like old varnish and fresh printer paper. Stale, official, indifferent. Wooden benches creaked under bored spectators. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a pale, unforgiving glow. At the front of the room, Officer Brett Harlan leaned back in the witness stand like it was a recliner, one arm stretched across the rail, the other resting on his lap. His badge caught the light. So did his smirk. He tilted his head toward the bailiff, eyes flicking to the girl, gathering papers at the defense table. "Student Observer Day?" he muttered, not even trying to whisper. The bailiff didn't respond, but his lips twitched. Two people in the gallery chuckled. Not loud, but loud enough. The girl didn't look up. Her hands moved steadily, one flipping a tab, the other uncapping a pen. She dropped a sheet of paper, and it fluttered to the floor like a final piece of proof. That's when Harlan chuckled. Just once. Short, sharp, dismissive. He didn't say her name. He didn't know it. She wore a navy blazer slightly too big in the shoulders, a pair of black jeans, and scuffed white sneakers that squeaked every time she shifted. Her hair was pulled back into a neat bun. No makeup, no earrings, no attempt to soften or harden her appearance. Just focus. Just work. Judge Emerson sat at the bench, flipping through his own file. No expression on his face. Just routine. Routine cases, routine mornings, routine bias soaking into the cracks between words and posture. At the prosecution table, an assistant DA whispered something to his lead. They both glanced over at the girl, then at each other. One raised an eyebrow. The other shrugged. "Court is now in session," the bailiff called, his voice flat and automatic. The judge nodded. "We'll proceed with docket 12B. Officer Harlan, you may remain on the stand. Defense." The girl rose, not with a flourish, not with nerves, but with quiet purpose. She lifted her binder, walked to the podium, and spoke clearly into the mic. "Your Honor, Alana Reeves, junior counsel for the defense. I'll be conducting the cross." Harlan's brow creased. The gallery tilted, just slightly, like a crowd leaning forward without meaning to. The prosecutor stood halfway up. "Ah, Your Honor, she's not. She's cleared," Judge Emerson said, not looking up. Alana nodded once, then turned toward the witness stand. She didn't smile. She didn't raise her voice. "Officer Harlan," she said, "how long have you been with the department?" The smirk faded just a little. He shifted in his seat, and for the first time since she walked in, Officer Brett Harlan blinked like he wasn't quite sure what kind of morning this was going to be. The courtroom didn't turn silent for her. It didn't pause, didn't flinch. She was just another teenager, as far as they could tell. Alana Reeves moved with quiet precision. Papers squared, binder zipped halfway, a single black pen clipped to the front. She adjusted the cuff of her oversized blazer, pushed her chair back, and stood like she wasn't waiting for permission. The other defense attorney, a gray-suited man with a laptop open and a coffee cooling beside him, glanced at her, then went back to reviewing his notes. She walked to the front podium. No rustle of a silk blouse, no heels echoing through marble, just sneakers on tile, and a breath in her throat. "Your Honor," she said, clear but not loud. "Alana Reeves, junior counsel. I'll be handling the cross-examination." The prosecutor blinked. So did the assistant. Even Judge Emerson looked up from his docket for a second longer than usual. His expression didn't change. Just a small pause. From the witness stand, Officer Harlan shifted. Not alarmed, just amused, like someone waiting for a punchline. The prosecutor stood halfway. "Ah, Your Honor, I'm not sure. She's certified under Section 14B of the mentorship statute," said the gray-suited man at the defense table, finally looking up. The program was pre-approved. "She's within rights to conduct." Judge Emerson nodded slowly. "Very well. You may proceed." Alana gave a short nod, and turned back toward the witness stand. No stumble, no nerves. She didn't try to fill the space with charm or explanation. She just opened her binder. One page was already dog-eared. Another had a single line highlighted in blue. She placed both hands on the podium and looked up at the officer, not with challenge, not with apology, just readiness. The gallery didn't know what to make of it. A teenager, not dressed like an attorney, not sounding like one, not looking like one. If you only believed what a lawyer should look like. And yet, she didn't flinch. She didn't laugh when others did. She didn't blink when Harlan smirked. She was there for one thing, and one thing only: facts. The room hadn't noticed her walk in, but it was about to notice everything she said next. The objection came before Alana could ask her second question. "Your Honor," the lead prosecutor said, standing fully now, voice just sharp enough to sound concerned, but not quite respectful. "We'd like to formally question the appropriateness of junior counsel, leading cross, in a case of this nature." He didn't look at Alana when he said it, just past her, like she was a misplaced intern, not someone speaking into a microphone. "Inappropriate and potentially disruptive," he added, emphasizing the last word, like she was a fire drill, no one scheduled. The courtroom didn't shift much. No gasp, no protest. Just a few exchanged glances, and one uncomfortable cough from the gallery. Officer Harlan sat back, arms crossed, watching the exchange like he already knew how it would end. Alana didn't react. She didn't fold her arms, didn't push back. She stayed where she was, fingers resting on her binder, eyes forward. The judge leaned back in his chair, grey at his temples, catching the overhead light. His face didn't move, but one brow lifted slowly. "Mr. Resnick," he said, "are you suggesting this counsel lacks standing?" "I'm saying," the prosecutor replied carefully, "that allowing a teenager to question a senior officer could send the wrong message to the court and undermine the seriousness of the matter." The judge didn't blink. He looked down at the file in front of him, flipped a page, and spoke like he was reading something already memorized. "Miss Reeves is registered under the state-sanctioned Youth Legal Mentorship Initiative, signed off by this court. The defendant has accepted her representation. She is cleared." A pause, then continue. The prosecutor hesitated, but only for a second. He gave a stiff nod, and sat down without a word. At the witness stand, Harlan's smirk slipped, barely. Alana didn't gloat, didn't glance back, didn't smile. She turned a page in her binder, clicked her pen once, then spoke. "Officer Harlan, as I was saying, how long have you been with the department?" The officer shifted, jaw twitching. "Almost 22 years. She nodded. "Then you're likely familiar with Department Policy 5.3. On traffic stops, correct?" He paused. "Generally." Alana held up a packet. "Would you like me to read it aloud?" "No." "Good," she said. "Then let's begin there." No one said a word, but the mood had shifted, because the court had just tried to dismiss her with one word, and she'd answered with 10 more. Calm, prepared, undeniable, and for the first time, someone other than Alana realized this wasn't going to be a quiet morning. Alana didn't pace. She didn't dramatize. She stood at the podium like someone who had nowhere else to be, and nothing to prove. "Officer Harlan," she began, flipping to a marked tab. "You pulled over my client on May 14th, correct?" He nodded. "That's right. On what grounds?" "Failure to signal." Alana clicked her pen once. "Anything else?" Harlan squinted, thinking. He looked nervous, kept checking his mirrors, hands on the wheel, twitchy. She jotted something down. "Twitchy," she repeated. "Is that a formal observation?" He smirked again. "It's experience." Alana didn't respond. She flipped another page. "And after you stopped him, what happened?" "He was standoffish, asked why I pulled him, gave me attitude." Did he comply?" "Eventually." Alana looked up for the first time. "Did he raise his voice?" "No." "Threaten you?" "No." "Reach for anything without permission?" "No." She nodded once. No emotion, no hint of what came next. She turned a page, then held up a second printout. "This is from your March 8th traffic stop report. Do you recall it?" "Refresh me." "Same neighborhood, different driver. You wrote, quote, subject appeared nervous, twitchy, checking mirrors excessively. Suspicious behavior led to questioning." She held up another report. "This one from February 2nd, same phrasing, switchy, mirror checking. Looked like he had something to hide." She looked at the officer. "Do you copy and paste your field reports, Officer Harlan?" He shifted. "No." "Then why the identical language across 3 separate incidents?" "It's common behavior," he said flatly. "You see the same things." Alana tapped her binder. 3 black male drivers, all stopped within a 10-mile radius, all described the same way. Twitchy, mirror checking, suspicious. "You weapons." "No contraband. No arrests." She let that sit. Harlan's jaw tightened. Alana turned another page. And the failure to signal, did your body cam capture that violation?
He hesitated.
It wasn't visible from the angle, but you sighted it anyway. I observed it from my position, through a windshield, on a curve, with traffic. I judged it best I could. Alana looked to the judge. Noted. She returned her gaze to Harlan.
In your report,
You also wrote that the subject fit the type. What did you mean by that?
he blinked.
What type?
You tell me. It's your report. He sat up straighter.
I meant, people who act nervous, avoid eye contact, get defensive. Those are your markers for suspicion. They're indicators of guilt, sometimes.
She closed her binder.
Just halfway. Not finished. Just pausing. Or maybe she said quietly, they're just tired of being stopped for nothing. The room didn't move. Alana didn't press. Not yet.
Because this wasn't the fight.
This was just the setup. The room changed slowly, like a tide pulling back before anyone notices. At first it was just a few heads turning, a cough that didn't come. The sound of shoes stopping mid-shuffle against the floor. Alana hadn't raised her voice, hadn't pointed, hadn't paused for effect, but every word she spoke began to pull the air tighter. She stood with one hand on the podium, the other flipping through her binder, like she had all the time in the world. Officer Harlan, she said. You stated the subject appeared suspicious. You used that exact phrase in 3 different reports this year. What does that word mean to you? He straightened, but not with confidence. More like defense. It means something feels off. Something's not adding up. To you, yes, that's part of the job, reading situations. Alana nodded. And your training, does it include specific criteria for what qualifies as suspicious? It's situational, so not objective. I make judgment calls. She made a note. Are those judgment calls reviewed? Sometimes. Were yours reviewed in this case? No. Alana looked up. So your word stands unless someone challenges it. I suppose so. She let that hang for a second. A murmur started in the back row, but died just as quickly. Even the court reporter's fingers hovered above the keys now, still and waiting. Alana continued, calm as ever. You also wrote that the subject was hesitant to provide identification, yet in the footage, he's seen reaching for his wallet immediately. Do you dispute that? Harlan opened his mouth, closed it. Maybe I remembered it wrong, or maybe your assumptions came first. The gallery didn't shift anymore, it just froze. Alana turned to a printed still body cam footage, time-stamped. She held it up. This frame shows your vehicle parked at an angle that obstructs full visibility of the driver's turn signal. Do you agree? He squinted. Could be. And yet you cited failure to signal. I believed he did. Believed, she repeated. Her voice didn't change. But Harlan's did. You weren't there, he snapped. Alana didn't flinch. I don't have to be. The camera was. She set the image down, and that's when the smirk disappeared for good. Harlan's shoulders tightened. His knee bounced once, then stopped when he noticed it. A bailiff stood a little straighter. The defense co-counsel, silent all morning, folded his arms and leaned back, like he didn't want to miss what came next. Even Judge Emerson had stopped flipping pages, because the girl no one expected to speak was now the one no one dared interrupt. And the officer who mocked her was starting to realize, this wasn't going to end the way he thought it would. Alana didn't rush. She laid the pages out on the edge of the podium, like cards in a slow game. One, then another, then a third. Each clipped, highlighted, marked with tabs the color of caution tape. Officer Harlan, she said evenly. These are your reports from February 2nd, March 8th, and May 14th. Can you confirm these are your words? He squinted. If they're in the file, I must have written them. Alana nodded once. No sarcasm, just process. She turned the first page toward the courtroom. In each you described the driver as twitchy, nervous, or acting like he had something to hide. Do you recall using that phrasing? Yeah, it fits. Fits who? She asked. He shrugged. People who act like they're hiding something. Alana set down the second report. All 3 subjects were black males, ages 17 to 25, all driving older model sedans. No weapons recovered, no charges filed.
Yeah.
I go by behavior, he said quickly. Then why is the language identical? It's not identical. Alana circled 3 phrases in black ink, then read them aloud, slowly. Urban suspect exhibited twitchy behavior. Young male appeared shifty, refused eye contact. Suspect matched known type, hands shaking, glancing around.
She paused.
Do you know what a pattern is, Officer Harlan? I don't profile. I didn't ask if you did. I asked if you recognize the pattern. He licked his lips. The back of his neck flushed pink. His collar, crisp and starched an hour ago, had begun to collapse inward.
She picked up the 3rd page.
You used the term urban suspect twice.
Define that for me. He shifted. Just someone in an inner city environment. Environment, she repeated. Not race? No.
But only black males are described that way in your last 6 reports. That's a coincidence. Alana tilted her head slightly. 6 coincidences. The silence in the courtroom thickened like steam. No whispers now, not even breath. Alana stepped forward, not close, just close enough to be undeniable. You didn't see a crime, officer.
You saw a category.
One you built with language, one you repeated, case after case. He looked to the prosecutor for help. None came. You say it's experience, she continued. But what I see is expectation, not evidence.
He didn't respond.
Let me ask again, she said, her voice steady. Is it possible your reports say more about your perspective than the people you pulled over? He blinked fast. I did my job. And maybe, she said, tapping the last report. That's the problem. He didn't answer, because somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd page, the courtroom stopped seeing him as the man in control, and started wondering who had been watching whom all along. The words slipped out fast, too fast to stop. I've been doing this longer than she's been alive. Harlan scoffed, half laughing, voice rising with something between arrogance and panic. Don't think she gets to lecture me. It didn't echo. It didn't need to. The room didn't gasp. It just stopped. Alana stood perfectly still, eyes still on her binder, not reacting, not giving him the satisfaction of flinching. But at the bench, Judge Emerson leaned back in his chair. For a second no one was sure what he'd do. Then slowly, deliberately, he stood. The sound of his chair sliding back wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. All eyes turned. The smirk on Harlan's face faded in real time. Judge Emerson didn't speak right away. He didn't have to. He looked directly at Officer Harlan, eyes calm but sharp, then down at Alana, then back again. I wasn't going to say anything, he said softly, because I wanted the law to speak for itself today. But let's be clear. The silence deepened. You just mocked my daughter. A ripple moved through the room, too stunned to be loud, just a quiet collective recoil. Harlan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The judge's voice didn't rise. It didn't need weight. It carried its own gravity. She earned her right to be here, the same way you did. Through hours, through work, through rules you keep forgetting to follow. He didn't sit back down. And if you think your years on the job give you permission to dismiss hers, then I suggest you take a long look at why you're sitting in that chair, and not the one she's in. Harlan stared forward, frozen. The gallery, once filled with side talk and passive boredom, now felt like church on a thunderous Sunday, silent, still, reverent. Alana didn't smile. She didn't look at her father. Her fingers just turned the page. Clean, measured, focused. Judge Emerson's voice cut once more, low, final. Proceed, Miss Reeves. And then he sat, but no one else moved. Not the court reporter, whose fingers hovered above the keys. Not the prosecutor, who suddenly found the edge of the table very interesting. Not Officer Brett Harlan, who had finally, run out of ways to hide behind his badge. Because the girl he dismissed wasn't just a student. She wasn't just prepared. She was the reason the room now felt like truth had weight. And he'd just stepped into the middle of it without armor. It didn't come like a shout. It came like a sentence meant only for one person, but felt by everyone. That's my daughter. 7 words. Calm, measured, final. Harlan's jaw hung open for a second too long. His eyes flicked from the judge to Alana, and back again, searching for a sign that this was some kind of joke. It wasn't. No one laughed. No one whispered. Not this time. The power in the room didn't crack. It tilted, quietly, fully, completely. Alana didn't react. She didn't even glance up. Her pen scratched a small note in the margin of her binder, like nothing had changed. But everything had. The gallery, once distracted and half invested, now sat like a single held breath. The court reporter lowered her hands slowly, fingers resting like someone who knew a moment had just entered the record that no transcript could capture. The prosecutor leaned back in his chair and said nothing. Harlan swallowed. You could hear it. He looked like a man realizing too late that he'd lit the wrong fuse. Judge Emerson didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. His tone hadn't shifted. His posture hadn't stiffened. But his presence, the weight behind the bench, had taken on something new, something no badge could argue with. Alana turned a page. Officer Harlan, she said, voice even, you testified earlier that my client appeared unusually guarded during your initial approach. Can you clarify what that means? Harlan cleared his throat. He seemed tense. Tense, she repeated. Did he raise his voice? No. Use threatening language? No. Refuse to follow orders? No. Then what exactly did he do that led you to believe a search was necessary? Silence. Alana waited. The whole room waited. Finally, Harlan muttered. It was a feeling. Alana wrote it down without a word. The judge leaned forward slightly, hands folded. Not a glare, just watching now, with a father's memory behind his eyes, and a judge's patience barely holding the line. Harlan shifted again. The confident lean he'd entered with was gone. His arms were crossed now, not with power, but protection. He wasn't on the offensive anymore. He was exposed, because in a courtroom governed by rules and reason, it had taken just one sentence to remind everyone of something deeper. She wasn't just a girl. She wasn't just smart. She wasn't just the defense. She was the reason truth had a voice in that room. And the moment he laughed at her, he lost the right to pretend he knew what justice looked like. The judge sat down slowly, the creak of his chair, the only sound in the room. No commentary, no reaction, just gravity. Alana didn't blink, didn't smirk, didn't even breathe differently. She simply returned to the binder in front of her and turned a tab labeled Sequence Discrepancies. Officer Harlan, she said, you stated in your report that you initiated the stop at 4:03 p.m. Is that correct? Yes. She held up a time-stamped frame from his body cam. This image is from 4:06 p.m. It shows your vehicle just beginning to follow my client's car, meaning you didn't initiate the stop until 3 minutes later. He shifted. Maybe the time was off. She nodded. Except your own dispatch call logs confirm the stop was radioed in at 4:06. He blinked. She moved on. You claimed my client hesitated before pulling over. Can you define that? He didn't stop immediately. She turned the monitor to the jury. This is the footage between 4 hours 6 minutes and 12 seconds and 4 hours 6 minutes and 41 seconds. My client activates his blinker, reduces speed, and pulls into a commercial lot within 29 seconds of lights engaging. Does that match your definition of hesitation? He paused. I guess, no. Alana clicked to another frame. And you stated my client looked visibly agitated. Correct? Yes. She hit play. The courtroom watched the footage. Her client seated calmly, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, responding with quiet yes sirs to each command. Alana let it run. No commentary, just the footage filling in every blank Harlan tried to write over. Agitated. She repeated quietly. He cleared his throat. Said nothing. She clicked her pen again. The only sharp sound in the silence. Let's talk about your search. You wrote that you observed a suspicious bag under the seat. Yes. Did you ask what was inside? Yes. Did you wait for the answer? I think so. You didn't. She flipped to a transcript of the audio. You interrupted before he answered and opened the door. His jaw tightened. Did you have consent to search the vehicle? He didn't respond. Officer Harlan. No. Did you have a warrant? No. Then per your department's manual, section 5.3, page 12, you violated procedure by initiating a non-consensual search without probable cause. He stared forward, frozen. Alana turned to the judge. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time. She stepped back. No smile, no nod, just silence. Harlan didn't move. His shoulders had slumped. His hands, once folded with ease, now gripped the edge of the stand like it was keeping him upright. Because the smirks were gone. The authority was gone, and every line he thought would protect him had just collapsed under the weight of his own words. Alana didn't speak right away. She stood at the podium, one hand resting on her binder, the other still. The silence wasn't awkward. It was intentional. It stretched just long enough for people to lean in again, unsure of where it would go next. Then, quietly, she asked, "Officer Harlan, do you ever wonder who they are?" He frowned. "Who?" "The young men you stop. The ones you describe as twitchy, nervous, suspicious. Do you ever wonder where they're going? What kind of day they've had?" He shifted. "I just do my job." She nodded slightly. "I understand, but I'm asking, do you wonder?" He didn't answer. "Do you think maybe," she continued, "one of them was just late to a job interview, or on his way to visit his grandmother in the hospital?" Still no answer. "What if the one you searched in March was headed to night school?" A pause. "What if my client was coming from tutoring 7th graders, and just wanted to get home before dark?" The words weren't loud. They didn't accuse, but they landed like questions never asked before. "Do you think about that?" she asked again. "About who they might be outside of your instinct?" Harlan blinked. "Once. Twice. I don't know," he muttered. Alana stepped forward. Not aggressive, just closer. "Because it matters. Whether you see a person or a threat. Whether you ask questions or assume answers. Whether you pause long enough to ask, who is this kid, really, before deciding he's someone to be feared." She didn't break eye contact. "You didn't ask my client where he was coming from, or what he did for work, or why his hands were shaking." She let the weight of the pause do the rest. "Maybe it's because you thought you already knew." The courtroom stayed completely still. No phones, no whispers, no shifting on the benches, just the quiet realization that the facts weren't the only thing on trial anymore. Alana nodded once. Slow, final. "That's all I needed to know." She turned back to the defense table, her footsteps soft, deliberate, and behind her, Officer Brett Harlan sat like a man suddenly aware of how little he'd ever really seen.